Everything we know, the entire universe, might just be a simulation running inside a supercomputer. In this dream world of the imagination, anything is possible. Join us on the Simulationist podcast as we explore our culture of simulations.
Hello everybody, welcome back to the Simulationist podcast. This is the 207th iteration of the show, recorded on the 23rd of August, 2016. And my name is Josh Trelevin, and on the other microphone, the other voice you're about to hear any second,
co-host extraordinaire, Ryan Kirkby.
Ryan, hey.
Hey. How goes it, Josh?
It goes good, yeah. Life is pretty good.
Not quite fall, but, like summer is definitely winding down.
Yeah, what it is it's back to school season. Everybody's getting school supplies and
which is good for nerds, because where else can you buy yourself like a hand thickness worth of graph paper and a lot of mechanical pencils without people giving you second weird looks, right?
Yeah.
So plus, if you buy it at the right time, you can get some real good deals and stock up, man. Like last year, at least a year. So whee. For those of you who want to do that sort of thing, it's not everyone's bag. Just pick it up when you need it sort of thing for some people, but whatever. We got a little bit of a news story this week, in related to fiction. The movie, Suicide Squad. We mentioned this previously, how well they did for their opening box office week. It's not their box office opening week anymore. It's their third week in. They're still number one in the box office right now.
Okay, so Suicide Squad doing well.
Yeah, like the opening weekend they got 133 million and all that, and this weekend they got 20 million. So it is going down, but it's still the number one box office weekend take, which I think very good, because they had 3 new openers this week, for movies. That War Dogs and Ben-Hur were the most notable of the two. Ben-Hur opened up at 6th. That's a bit of a weak start. War Dogs got, I believe it was 3rd place for its take. And I think this bodes really, really well for characters like Harley Quinn and other lesser known heroes or villains in this regard.
Or whatever Harley Quinn is.
Well, that's the thing, is she does anti-hero, she does villain, she does legitimate hero very well in a lot of different genre stuff. Depending on what timeline and what story arc you're going with, she can be all three, and she fits it very well. So it is very nice to see a character that has that versatility. Because you take someone like Deathstroke the Terminator, and it's kind of hard to make him be a hero. He can do anti-hero very well when the situation calls for it, right? But he can't do honest-to-goodness hero. It just doesn't fit his character right. Whereas Harley Quinn has that nice personality mix and depth of character where you can buy her being a legitimate hero for the right reason. You can be her being the anti-hero, doing the wrong thing for the right reason. You can buy her being a full-on mercenary-type villain.
Yep.
So that's just nice. And the more that this movie stays in the number one position, or even I'll say in the top 10, the better odds are going to be of seeing a Harley Quinn solo movie. Whether or not it'll still be connected is an issue up in the air. It looks like the Warner Brothers are definitely trying to hop aboard the Marvel-style mega universe movie franchise thing.
Yeah, it makes sense, yeah.
Now, see, this does bode very well from my perspective, because they had an Injustice League series, video game and comic books and all that stuff, where Superman effectively goes rogue, Batman's fighting him. Harley Quinn plays effectively a hero in that role. She realizes, the Joker's gone too far, yada yada, and winds up having to do the right thing because she wants to. So with Harley Quinn doing so well and Justice League movies ramping up, I can see her being added in as a supporting cast to a few characters, or maybe be, doing the Injustice League route and becoming one of the Justice League members. Because out of the other characters, in the movie, who else is going to shine so well and has Justice League connections in that regard? Nobody. Not at all. Batman does a quick cameo, and I don't know if Joker's going to wind up reprised, by Jared Leto.
Okay.
So, I think I can definitely not see Joker being part of the Justice League. Maybe the Justice League of Arkham, but not the Justice League of America.
Okay, yeah.
So, hey, this is real good news from the perspective of a lot of fans who have really dug Harley Quinn, especially since her original days on Batman the Animated Series. It's nice to see a character without the length of pedigree, because, like, Superman and Batman, they got like 70 years on them each. They are long-established heroes. Mm-hmm. Harley Quinn came out in the 90s, and it's nice to see her still striking the same favorite note and chord style. So, woo!
Yeah, it's cool. And I think, a big Harley Quinn movie, I think that would be really good.
Well, like the Deadpool movie managed to be a great one. You needed the right soul for it, and as it turns out, Ryan Reynolds is the soul of the Deadpool movie.
I see. Yeah.
So, provided they get the right soul for Harley Quinn, I see no reason why it can't do the same sort of thing in the box office. So, hooray! And who knows? Maybe she gets like an outfit that doesn't include booty shorts. Maybe, I don't know. Hopefully. Like, I know, like, the fashion style is no longer apropos, but I do prefer her one-piece, stocking outfit with the Harley Quinn style.
Yeah, okay.
But I've also seen how they kind of mask her stuff like that with Superman's outfit, and, doing, some sort of, like weave texture that makes it look like it's, like, chainmail or something. I don't know.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's the thing about these new superhero movies. The comic books, there's only so much detail you can get in a panel of, like, Superman just has a plain blue, blue and red.
That's the thing. For a long time, it was effectively like cloth. Like,
yeah.
It was Kryptonian, but it was, just like cloth, and that was all that was really needed. Because all you had to do was do the basic body outline and then color it in the right way. With the chest shape there and the belt over here, bada bing, bada boom.
Exactly. And in a lot of the superhero movies that we've seen kind of come and go, they've tried to replicate. They're like, oh, well, we have to make it look like the comics, so obviously we're going to have this, like, sort of monotone, like the Flash outfit, like all like a red, pajamas. And that's sort of in the past. But more recently, in the more recent versions, they've gone a lot more like, well, let's
some
detail
padding
these costumes
that works
out.
well, which is what I see in the Flash series. Is it does look like he can hit the ground and do a bit of a roll without like shattering a bone or two. Which he still shatters a bone or two throughout like the seasons, but like set it right and use super healing, fixes that up pretty easily. But it still looks like he can take a few shots because he's not running around in pajamas.
Yeah. Or like Batman, the Adam West live-action series. Basically, what that was basically pajamas that Batman was wearing.
Now, what if you worked with all those different sort of styles with Harley Quinn in a movie, sort of thing, to show her different like mental states?
Yeah.
Because when she's feeling happy and all that, it is like a pajama sort of thing, and everyone's wearing like Adam West style pajamas. Mm-hmm. And when things get serious, there she is wearing, like the outfit is just now being imaged as like it's got the body armor protection stuff on.
Yeah, so like a chainmail, Kevlar chainmail or something.
Yeah, and so like the style of the movie winds up changing in relation to her attitude.
Well, sure.
To help show her mental state. Because that's what they did in the comic book stuff. Whenever things got really serious for her, like one of her henchmen is like shot and dying, it would go really cartoony as Harley Quinn loses touch with reality and imagines something like, oh no, that's just like a shallow wound, I'll be fine, and off she like trapeses off away happy, knowing that her henchman didn't die when he just bleeds to death in front of her.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember that. Like the anime or manga, I should say, has a bit of that style where they zoom in and out of detail, like
from chibi to highly like detailed.
Yeah.
Sometimes scary details, like woof, that's
a
little creepy.
And then Ren and Stimpy took a little bit of that too. Oh
yeah. That was a hallmark of their series. It's just that gross zoom in, like you see every little wart and bump detail.
Yeah.
I could definitely see that working with Harley Quinn to help show her mental states and set her apart from like being just like a Deadpool clone movie. Get that added level of like emotional depth going on in there. So fingers crossed. That might be a very interesting way for them to go. They'll consider it, hopefully.
Well, if they listen to this podcast, they will.
If they read the original Harley Quinn comics, they will.
Well, they might not. It might not occur to them to follow that.
Well, if you're going to be like rating up the character, you got to see what made her, good sort of thing. So hopefully they've got like a good like rating crew on there that looks into what made the series before popular.
Yeah.
So
are there other heroes who like specifically is it sort of the gimmick is outside the hero themselves, and more of like the stylistic choice that is how we view them? Okay.
It would be in that regard. A lot of people complain that Plastic Man hasn't been done well in recent years because he's too much of a comedic character. When the original series, yes, he still stretched and did all that stuff, but it was in a setting like of I guess some sort of weird subset. This is back in Golden Age when you could have like effectively different worlds going on there. But his world was crazier than anything that he was or did. He was like the last sane man in his world. He was the straight man of his series. And a lot of people are lamenting that he's just like the goofy comic relief, character now. So yeah, for him, it's the outside world at least as much as it is about him and his powers. And hey, maybe that's who they have for the air quotes villain of the Harley Quinn movie. Because like if she's going to wind up being like the villain, her villain has to wind up being a hero then.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So in this case, the hero is someone like a goofy and workable to make the thing she can smack him with a big old mallet and you can have like the Looney Tunes flattened head style, but that's okay because he pops on back.
Could be, yeah.
The other option historically for her has been the Creeper. Jack Ryder gets subjected to something similar to the Joker, going into the vat of toxins, but when he comes out, he's also exposed to like the Joker toxin, the laughing gas the Joker does. He comes out and he's crazy and he's funny. He's got the heroic style to him. And did you ever see Freakazoid?
Yep.
Freakazoid was effectively based off the Creeper.
Okay.
Yeah. Imagine an improv artist as a superhero criminal. And that's a very good way of getting both Freakazoid as well as the Creeper.
Man, I bet you those Freakazoid comics are probably all on, or comics, cartoons. They're probably all on YouTube now.
Probably, yeah. Which is the thing, though, is that they couldn't keep doing more series, because not just because of they got canceled, but because it was such a short time between making it and writing it, making it, and airing it, that it had to be very much improv in style.
Yeah.
And thus, if they had gotten better ratings, and gotten that third, other season out there and more time to produce it, it wouldn't have had that spontaneous, weird nature to it, because it had to be done on that short time frame.
Yeah.
So it wound up being as much as the undoing as anything else on them. Alas and alack.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was a good news, I suppose, for all the fans of DC Comics out there, that this might wind up setting a bit more of the tone of how things go, because it's done very well in the box office, comparable to the Batman versus Superman movie.
Yeah.
And it has gotten generally more positive reviews than them, so.
Slightly more. It's not a critical
It's not
hit.
as though, everyone's like, oh my god, you gotta see this is the best movie of the year, sort of like stuff like Deadpool managed to get for good press and publicity.
Yeah.
But there's a lot less people complaining about it than the Batman Superman Dawn of Justice.
Yeah, so it's slightly better, but it's still lots of people are seeing it, so that's a good thing, yeah.
Yeah. And that's what DC really needs, is a couple more hits under their belt with generally favorable reviews. So here's hoping they've started to find their traction, right? Fingers crossed.
Okay.
And I gotta say, the Justice League movie got me more intrigued than the Batman versus Superman one ever did.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So, hey, maybe it just took them a while to get that running speed up, sort of thing.
And it might have also, it probably does, like, we talk about Marvel and DC as rivals and stuff, but it probably actually boosts DC to have Marvel makes like a really great ensemble movie. We're talking Avengers and Avengers Age of Ultron. And so basically that gives DC the confidence. They're like, well, it's possible to do. So now
we just have to figure out how not to bungle this up along the way, like so many other disasters. There's an old saying. It's like there are 100 woes between the farm and the plate, to represent like just how many things can go wrong between growing your food and eating it. And I think there's something similar in parallel from wanting a movie to be made and getting it out there.
Okay.
There's 100 different ways that can go wrong. So here's hoping they find a way to avoid all 100, or at least maybe 97. I'll accept a flawed movie, right?
Yeah.
As long as it's generally good, I'm okay. My standards are a little lower than most, I suppose.
Sure.
So, fingers crossed. Fingers crossed. But you told me a conspiracy theory.
Oh, yes.
Before we started the podcast. And you've got to tell them this.
Since we do these now, yes, my
as
conspiracy
they come
theory.
up, as we think them.
Well, you know how wrestling is, how to...
Staged?
Scripted, whatever you want to call it.
They say wrestling's fake, but, there's been a few people who've gotten hurt and actually killed over the years, so I'm pretty certain that wasn't in the script.
Yeah, they're obviously they're human beings, so that's not... Yeah, but... so it's not real.
It's not Days of Our Lives level scripted, but the general outcome is predetermined by and large. Unless injury takes someone down early, in which case, like, what are you going to do? Fake a punch from nothing? Oh, he got me down there.
I think it's possible, but
yeah. You gotta make it look like somewhat real.
Probably.
If you wind up knocking a person unconscious, there's no way they're winning that match.
Oh, well, yeah.
Got to get the script doctors in and do like a post-haste change to put things back on track.
But I was thinking, for a lot of kids and, for me, too, growing up, there was a time in my life where I sort of believed in wrestling, believed in Santa Claus.
The natural disasters are a real team, man. Hulk Hogan is the thing. But can he beat the Ultimate Warrior?
Yeah, and then I guess somewhere around probably grade 6... maybe even earlier, I started hearing, people would say, wrestling's fake. And then I found out about it. Well, I didn't have the internet, so I couldn't just, is wrestling fake?
Yeah, we're old enough we can predate the internet, and we have to figure things out through logic and deduction.
The internet existed, but we didn't have it, so... And it was, not everybody had the internet back.
It wasn't as ubiquitous as today.
Right. But yeah, so that I don't know if you want to call it awakening to find out that, wrestling is not real or whatever.
Or as truthful as claimed.
Or WWF at the time.
Yeah, okay, well, that's the thing is, yes, the proper, Olympic wrestling is completely legitimate and real.
Yeah,
and
it's real. But, okay.
Unless someone throws a match there, but that's much more the exception than the rule.
Probably, although, the conspiracy theory, maybe let's go back to ancient times. And, what if the gladiator games in ancient Rome were, fake, but nobody, because there was no internet and because people, maybe they kept it a secret a little bit better, maybe nobody found out that it was fake, and maybe they just thought it was all real the whole time.
Or perhaps it was spoiler alert, Santa, where once you're on the inside and you don't tell anyone else for fear of ruining it.
Yeah.
And maybe they just had less jerks back then to go around spoiling it. And so it's once you realize, that's the same, a gladiator that died, last month in one of the minor ones when I was going out over there.
I imagine, too, I had this thought, you could probably put on a pretty convincing, Las Vegas show, and you could... maybe with magic tricks or something like that, you could make it look like you had a real gladiatorial battle, and you could make it look like people were getting seriously hurt just by using fake effects and props
distance.
And blood, and
Because let's face it, you look at that Grand Coliseum, no one's got an up close view, not really.
In the Roman Coliseum,
yeah, and if you've got eyesight like today. Back then, which I assume they did have the same eyes that we have. It's not like we've somehow evolved better or worse eyes in the last, we'll call it 3,000 years, just to be very generous on some of the earlier stuff going on there.
Whenever they invented gladiator games, okay.
What's the thing is it was going right up to the 400s, and then Christianity kind of spread, and everyone was like, ooh, we probably shouldn't be killing people anymore, so they kind of died out that way.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, we'll say 3,000 years ago. I don't think that's enough time for like humanity to change its eyeballs through some sort of microevolution.
Okay.
So if they've got eyes like we do, but they don't have glasses like we do now, then chances are you can get away with a decent amount of stuff just based on the distance between the gladiators and the spectators.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Yeah. So there you go. There's my conspiracy theory. Maybe that was all. Like, I think that would be easier for them. Well, in some ways, it'd be easier to fake it than to do it. Well, would it be? Than to do. That's my big conspiracy question always. Is it easier to actually do the thing or to fake the thing?
Well,
like,
the thing is, like at its height, there was like wild animals in there, and there was like 20 people on 20 people fights going on, and nets and like to the death sort of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But wouldn't it be a lot easier to have like a trained animal, you know, like they do in like a lot of shows today? Like, don't get me wrong, people probably die because I mean, like just look at Siegfried and Roy.
Yeah.
They don't have 100% success rate with their tigers. So I imagine we'll say they're like even with a trained animal like that, there'd have been some real casualties.
And also, I remember like reading about like basically if you wanted to get a lion or something or something even more exotic, you'd have to transport it maybe by boat or by caravan, like in a little cage. So by the time it gets to your arena and whatever, maybe okay, sure, it's like hungry and stuff, so, and it's pissed off, so there's that. But it's also pretty weak.
Well, here's the thing: is one, they didn't have to transport as far. Because back in the day, they actually, had wild lions in the southern part of Europe.
Okay, yeah.
Which is why you can have stuff like the British, like royal symbol being a lion. Like, where are the lions in Britain? Yeah, there used to be stuff like that within a close enough proximity to call claim.
Okay.
And then we hunted them.
Were there dragons in Wales?
Depends on who you ask. But maybe. But yeah, we kind of hunted them out to extinction, because large predator versus humanity. Who wins? Humanity in the long term.
Yeah, okay.
And so, that's why there's only the African stuff left. But I do recall seeing movies that featured animals in transit. The Isle of Dr. Moreau and I think it was Captive Woman, the Ape Woman series with Aquanetta. Back in the day, and that was back before like the proper standards were put into practice for Hollywood about not harming animals. And so those animals were kept in pretty tight quarters, but they were still pretty darn ferocious things. Like they were still scary enough, and like these like I feel a little bad kind of watching them because it's like, oh boy, that tiger and that lion are really fighting. You're seeing a real battle between a tiger and a lion going on there. And it's like, ooh, they got hurt likely in that fight, but it's just like they are so magnificent to watch in action. So they had to be fed at least adequately in that regard. And I imagine it shouldn't have been too hard to feed them along the transit route.
Okay. All right. Well, maybe they were okay.
Probably not as good as they could have been. I mean, not a lot of exercise going on in those small cages.
Yeah, that too. Yeah.
So I suppose, as long as they're kept in these small confines, they're not as good as they could have been.
Yeah.
But then again, you put them in like a nice large zoo area, and then you got to capture them every time you want to toss them into the Coliseum.
Yeah, I'm subscribed to a YouTube channel called Big Cat Rescue. It's about wildlife rehabilitation center located in Florida in the U.S.
Oh, very nice, very nice.
It's pretty cool. They have and they bring in wild cats from all over, I guess from North America. I don't know if they bring them overseas or anything because usually they don't
have too many of them in the Caribbean islands next door.
Yeah, but yeah,
not anymore at least.
They have very elaborate cage systems because they have really large enclosures. Basically, land.
Yeah, lots of space needed there.
Yeah, and they have a cage that's sort of that you build as you go. It's almost like a fence. It's and you can build it from the inside or you can build it from the outside. But yeah, you can basically cage into this, enclosure and find the cat.
So you just cage it off section by section?
Yeah.
Dig it.
Yeah.
That's pretty awesome.
So that's how they get the
least amount of hassle to the animal too.
Yeah, yeah.
Although they probably could make themselves some decent scratch by, doing like trank hunting for when that needs to be done. We need to get the animal out of this thing and properly into the lab. For $10,000, you can hunt it with tranquilizers.
I honestly, I think they would just have one of their employees do that, because they probably have
but you
someone
gotta pay
on staff.
the employee.
Yeah.
What if you got that lotto ticket sort of thing waiting for us? Like, okay, hey, who's up next? $10,000, and this one hunting's yours.
Maybe, yeah.
And let's face it, they never have enough money to get the stuff done on that. There's never enough funding to get the proper amount in there.
Yeah, well, I don't know how this particular organization funds itself. It seems to be doing okay, and it's got a YouTube channel, which earns a bit of revenue.
Here's another conspiracy theory: they've got organized crime connections. When somebody needs to disappear, they go in, but there's no caging and there's no tranquilizers. Wow,
yeah, that sounds like horrible, but yeah.
That sounds like a dang fine short story.
Yeah.
The guy, was finally pissed off the gangsters one too many times, and they decide to get rid of him. And they all place bets on him on how long he lasts in the enclosure. Yeah.
So my conspiracy theory, or an attempt at a conspiracy theory, is what if the Roman games were all fake all this time and nobody ever found out?
And they just didn't record it down because, like imperial decrees, like this is the opiate of the masses, as they say, right? Mm-hmm. So you don't let the masses know that it's all fake, and get them all cheesed off, because most of the Roman, leaders were smarter than that. Yeah. And thus, after it came to a close, nobody wrote it down, and those people die off due to natural age. It just winds up becoming a thing where you can't refute it. So, yeah, I accept it as a great conspiracy theory, and I got a nice little additional, dark short story out of it with the modern-day equivalencies.
That's what I want to see, by the way, as the next big mini-series or whatever. I think I would like to see, a gladiator TV show, because remember Gladiator the movie? It was it was so. It was very Hollywood.
It was Hollywood, definitely
formulaic kind of.
It was a good story.
Yeah, but I would like to see
Russell
a stretched out. Yeah, he's good. Like a mini series, or not even just a TV series like Game of Thrones style.
It would have to be HBO.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, sure.
Because to have that sort of violence in there, it took until 2 weeks ago for the public broadcasting stuff to put it CTV finally broadcast it first time on public television stuff. So it's woof. That stuff does not get proper play. HBO's the nice home for that.
Yeah.
But that said, you got to worry about all the people panicking. Oh my goodness, did he hurt the tiger in this scene? Did he hurt the lion? Oh no, it looks so emaciated. I can see ribs.
Did they in Game of Thrones they have wolves, but there's not a lot of scenes with the wolves in them.
The wargs?
Yeah, the dire wolves.
The dire wolves, yeah.
Because a warg is actually the word they use for a what do you call it?
Something worse.
A shaman or something.
Oh, fair enough. So yeah, the dire wolves. Well, that's the thing is they got wolf huskies in that one. I recognize those dogs. I had a dog like that in my day. I was a Stark once upon a time, effectively.
Ryan Karkby.
Ryan Starkby.
Starkby.
There we go. But they're a magnificent dog, very, very teachable, so I can see them being able to have them without having to worry about them getting hurt.
Okay.
And about the only time they shy away from showing any violence is when the dire wolves get hurt. Yeah, the only two times I think I've really seen them shy away from showing the violence was when Ned Stark, slits the wolf of a lady, and then when Ned Stark himself, gets his head chopped off. But that did make the scenes more powerful in that regard by not showing it.
You just spoiled.
Dude, it's Sean Bean. You want to see Sean Bean's acting portfolio? Google up Sean Bean death scenes. It's 8 minutes long of all his dying. How many of people in the Lord of the Rings, the Fellowship, died?
In the Fellowship?
Yeah.
Boromir.
Yep. Keep thinking. There ain't going to be any other names, but keep thinking. And who played Boromir?
Sean Bean.
Dang straight. He's the only guy in the whole group to die, because he's Sean Bean.
Okay.
He's hired to play a really good character and then die, usually violently.
Okay.
So,
yeah.
It's a niche role, but it's very lucrative, apparently. But yeah, I found those scenes to be more poignant and more emotional because of the lack of showing on that one.
Oh, I see. Okay.
And honestly, I imagine as well trained as a dog could be, it'd be even harder to show it where it's getting hurt, because it's harder to act that way. I mean, it's easy enough to get the dog to rip someone's throat out, right? It's here's a fake person, and here's some nice scented food, on there. Just go ripping at the throat there.
Okay.
Go boy, go! Oh, good boy! Look at you ripping that throat out. Yeah. So something with tigers and all that, if you're not going to make the whole thing a stylized, like CGI thing, might get rather difficult to work with. That would be the biggest impediment I see to it right now.
All right.
But I think it would be a great series.
Okay. Well, I'll start.
Or
writing
a
it.
game for D&D.
Good. Could be. Yeah.
Try to get your freedom. Try and earn your way through success.
Yeah. The gladiator. Yeah.
The gladiator campaign. But yes. Long story short, I think you got a good conspiracy theory out of that. Congratulations.
Okay. All right. Well, there we go.
Well, I guess on to what you've been doing this week, Josh.
Okay.
In things that didn't really happen.
In my life in simulations, I watched a movie called The Man Who Wasn't There. It's a Coen Brothers movie, starring Woody Harrelson.
Woody Harrelson's a good actor.
Yeah.
Coen Brothers are good directors and writers.
It was a good movie. It was all in black and white, and it's kind of somber. It's very, I don't know. It's about a guy.
It's black and white, but it ain't Three Stooges.
No, yeah, definitely not funny. No, yeah. Which is, often Coen Brothers movies are a bit funny, but this one...
Me, Myself, and Irene being a good example.
I don't think I laughed too much in this one.
They've got range, They got range, those Coen Brothers.
Yeah, that's the point. They're good. Yeah, and it was a good movie. I would give it 12 dwarves out of 13. So
very nice, very nice.
Pretty good score for that. It's about an everyman. It's about a guy who's kind of just a normal, average Joe. He's a barber. He gets involved in just some local stuff. It's not a big story. It's not like a giant story. It's sort of a
change the world sort of story.
Yeah.
It's more of a slice of life.
Yeah, it's slice of life and slice of death. I don't know how much to give away.
Well, death is a part of life. So
if
someone dies, that is the thing. But it's nice to see, because a lot of the movies that we see and we review tend to get these big things are happening, explosions are huge, and the world will never be the same when it's done. Mm-hmm. But there is a very nice specialness in seeing just a single personal story, just what's up with this person, and when they have to go through some trials and tribulations.
Yeah. It's a good movie. I don't know what else to say about it. It's just a normal
without
movie.
spoiling, right?
Yeah, I don't want to spoil it too much. What else did I do? Oh, I played a game, Katamari Damacy, I think it's called. It's this game, the game where you roll a ball of stuff.
You've effectively got a lint ball, and you got to collect bigger and more things.
Yeah, you collect items onto it, and you roll around. Yeah, and
it's got that catchy nice little tune.
Yeah. So I don't know. I played a bunch of that. I guess there's not much to tell about that. It's just a fun little game.
Not a new game, but it's your first time playing it?
I hadn't played it before. Yeah.
Oh. And you enjoyed it immensely? Enjoyed it a bit?
I enjoyed it, and I think I will enjoy it more once I get the handle of the controls. There's sort of I was playing it on PlayStation. I don't usually play PlayStation, so I'm not used to the controller.
Fair enough.
And it has some weird, you have to use both joysticks or something like that.
Yeah, it does require a lot of proper controls.
So yeah. But yeah, I played that, and of course I also played a bit of Dwarf Fortress. I think I'm pretty much I've achieved the part where I'm not worried about goblins or were creatures or what?
Starvation.
Pretty much, I think I'm okay for starvation. I'm starting to, like, my fort is very full of dwarves, so I'm worried. Well, I'm getting. The game seems to be what do you call it?
Spamming?
It's spamming me with messages about the dwarves can't find this or can't find that, or they don't know where to go.
You know, there is a little option in the game I can show you afterwards about how to turn off cancellation spam. Like, it'll show, like, all cancellation spam, some cancellation spam, or none at all.
Oh, really? Okay.
So if you think it's minor enough, there's always just a nice little toggle you can switch that'll get rid of it for you.
I might have to do that.
Just say, pester someone else about it.
Yeah, but all this time, like, I've been trying to grow crops. I've been getting very frustrated about the dwarves not having seeds to plant crops. But I think it's just the case that the seeds get moved around and they're always in transit. So it's because I think it's a flaw in the game, obviously. But I suppose
an item in use is not usable by anyone else. So you can't just like chase after some guy. Go, wait, hold up! I need this bag of seeds first here.
Yeah.
So yeah, it is considered a flaw. The programmer does know about it. It's on his list of how to try and fix things.
Okay.
But there's a very long list of things to do.
Yeah.
He did just recently, though, add in pedestals and stuff. So if you have, your dwarf creates like an artifact and it's something worthless, like I'll say an earring, just a really, really boss earring.
Mm-hmm.
There has been a mod for it for a very long time to add in a display case. But now with the latest thing, he's got like display cases and stands where you can just put things up and just have them on display and people can admire them as they go by. So that'll be in officially. Woo!
I'm still frustrated with Dwarf Fortress. I'm just getting used to this idea that really what Dwarf Fortress is, it's really a text-based game. It's more about, just telling, getting these stories in text and stuff. And I almost feel like the visual interface of, seeing your fortress is almost like a secondary addition to it. That said, I kind of would like to be, because some of the descriptions are very cool. It's like, oh, this is a jewel-encrusted, like, crown and this and that, and you're adding stuff to it. But all of this stuff you just have to imagine in your head.
It's like the old roguelike adventures, yeah.
Well, yeah.
It does require, a very strong visual mind. You got to really build up those muscles.
Yeah, and I kind of wish there was more. Even, like, I've seen there's dwarf, what is it, Armok Vision. There's some different ways to...
the first one with dwarf of the first Armok.
No, like Armok Vision is like a a mod that lets you visualize your fortress.
There are some ones like that. I prefer Stone Sense because that'll allow you to see the fortress as an isometric 3D sort of thing.
Okay. Yeah.
And that's pretty boss when it's working with and compatible with your version.
Okay.
There's some stuff where it's just skipped ahead and they have to play catch up, so not every minor version is truly compatible.
Yeah.
That said, do you remember that scene from The Matrix where Neo is talking to the one guy? He says I don't even see the code anymore. Blonde, brunette, redhead.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of like that. After a certain point in time, things will just click. You'll look over, you'll see the geese and the chickens. You'll look over there, you'll see the dogs, and over here you'll see, as it all goes up, and you'll picture it in your mind.
I suppose, yeah. Yeah.
It's very interesting that way, in that it requires you to do it. And who knows how long before anything winds up working where it'll actually be presented in a more visual context as part of the game itself, if ever at all.
Yeah.
Oh, well. At least it's got more backstory in its games than most games do.
Yeah, that's true. It's like you can see where he put the effort into this game. Because there's, these procedurally generated, histories of the world. Like, I got one of a diplomat came by my fortress, and he came to talk to me and give me all the news of the world.
Yeah.
And there's just pages and pages of, this happened, that happened. But it's also a little bit apparent once you read through a few of them that they're formulaic. They're what do you call it? They're made of pieces.
Yeah.
And you'll see the same pieces over and over and over again. The names will be changed, but it's like so and so was kidnapped by the the evil monster or something like that. And then
I believe that is one of the bloat things he's going to wind up doing, is at least having it phrased differently. So it's less formulaic in that regard. But that, as I said, is a bloat, and that's not exactly high up on his list of things to fix.
Okay. And also, I'm wondering, like, there's...
But be happy. I mean, it used to be, like, when I started playing, once the world generation was done, that was it. No more history was ever generated.
Okay. Yeah.
The only thing that ever happened was what happened on your map.
Yeah.
And that was it, forevermore. So he's got that so, like, the world continues moving on and things keep happening elsewhere. Does slow down the frames every once in a while when it, works that all up together, but at least the world keeps moving.
Yeah, and I'm wondering, like, is there anything you can do about, if you read about, like, something happening in a distant country, I guess there's nothing you can really do about it.
Sending armies off is a planned feature.
Okay.
Yeah.
Send armies away from your fortress.
Right now, you can kill enough goblins so that you can retire your fortress for a year or two, start up an adventure mode, and just finish off making the rest of the civilization become extinct.
Okay. And is there any plans for, like, a server or multiplayer? Like,
that is asked about weekly for multiplayer.
Okay.
Long story short, no.
There's no plans. He's not going to do it.
Very long response, no. But there is a mode whereby you take the save and then you move it over, onto like the Dwarf Fortress File Depot, the DFFD.
Mm-hmm.
And someone else will pick it up, and it'll be in a preset thing in the forums for who gets to pick it up, and it'll be like every spring when you should have it like auto save, and you hand it over to someone else, and they become like the overseer of the fortress. And some very fun games have come out of that.
Okay.
Fun is in like
fun as in
flooding,
not fun.
Flooding is in fun is in flooding the surface with magma to get rid of goblin and elephant armies.
Mm-hmm.
And, slow insanities and differences like people not properly making notes as to what this lever does. So when the goblins come, you have to throw a lever to close the gate, but which gate lever is it? And then you do the wrong thing, and all of a sudden it's like, oh no, the dwarves that were out, harvesting my, or just, harvesting wild, crops out in the land there, so they get burned, by lots and lots of lava. Whoops.
Yeah.
Long story short, mark everything. There's ways to mark it in the game. Don't worry. It's just it'll save you hassle in a single game. Eventually, if you got enough levers.
Oh, how do you? Are there labels or signs?
You can make notes for yourself, and then you can just always bring up the note thing, and then just cursor over, and it'll say, hey, this is you leave yourself a note. So it'll say hey Josh, this one closes the front gate, versus hey Josh, this one opens up the cage full of zombies we've captured.
You can put a lever anywhere on the map and connect it to anywhere else, right?
Yeah, for some reason the mechanisms are just quantum connected.
Yeah, okay. I usually, mine are usually within about 10 blocks.
It does make things a little bit more convenient.
Because then I can see which one goes. But you imagine, in Dwarf, what you could do is you could have a central, lever room.
Yes.
Like a control room. And
the master control room.
Although you can connect a bridge to more than one lever, right?
Yes. So you can have it where you switch one, lever and 3 gates, open or close here, and then you switch another lever and 2 out of 3 will open and a 4th one will close up like that to create different configurations.
Okay.
There are some very important uses for that, but mostly in dwarf computing, where you actually make a computer in the game.
Okay.
Logic gates and stuff like that.
Yeah. All right. Well, that was my week. A couple of movies, games. Yeah.
Very nice. Very nice.
How about
this week, I watched The Lion King with my daughter. I'll bring her on in here, and we'll get her to say, how much she liked it or didn't like.
The Disney version.
Yes, the Disney version.
Or I guess there's all versions are technically
Well, that's
Disney.
the thing. There's that whole bit about Kimba, the white lion, and the lawsuit and all that going on. You can Google it. It's okay. I'll get Zoey on in here. So, Zoey, what did you think of the movie The Lion King?
It was good.
Oh. Who was your favorite character?
King and Simba and and the and Simba and her mom.
Oh, so you like Simba and his mom and dad?
Mhm.
Oh, very good, very good. What did you think of Timon and Pumbaa?
They're very silly.
They were comedic relief, silly characters. And what did you think about the monkey Rafiki?
He's pretty serious singing that song.
Yeah, that little song he was singing made him silly. And what was the lesson to be learned in this movie?
I don't know.
Oh. Well, what did you learn from watching this movie?
And I also love the bad guy that sings a really nice bad guy song.
Oh, Scar.
Mhm.
You liked him?
Yeah.
He was a good villain who sings a very good evil man song.
Mhm.
Oh, very good, very good. What did you think about the hyenas?
They're pretty silly when they say when they go like when their mouth like circles like crying, say the word war song.
Oh, so you like the sounds they made?
Mhm.
Very good, very good.
Mhm.
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 So, did you learn anything from this movie or no?
Yeah.
Yeah, what'd you learn?
Don't know.
Yeah, it sums up about most of my lessons for watching stuff until I hit about 25. So, in the end, would you recommend this movie for everybody to watch and listen to?
Yeah.
Okay. Hit the button. And thank you, Zoe. Thank you, Zoe. I did not realize at the time of originally watching the movie just how star-studded this cast is.
Mm-hmm.
I learned to love Nathan Lane later on, so hearing his voice now just instantly rings with me. The guy sings well. He's good comedic stuff. I want to see him in more things. I didn't get, for some reason, like despite the fact I was watching Mr. Bean around the same era, I didn't get Rowan Atkinson, as Zazu, despite the fact he's got that nice distinctive voice to him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, as Mr. Bean, he doesn't talk a lot.
Oh.
Blackadder obviously talks more.
And like the show that he was with the cop and all that sort of thing, he does more conventional talking. He also has his own comedy routines that he's been doing for a while.
Okay.
But I just never got him as any of that, despite watching it, like on TV. Don't know why. I did get Jonathan Taylor Thomas as the young Simba.
Mm-hmm.
I think everybody.
Is he still making movies?
I think he's effectively retired off.
I haven't seen anything from him in a long time, I feel like.
Nah, he had his fun in the sun. Now he's just kind of living his own life. He's rich enough to do
I guess he made a lot of money, yeah.
Yeah. Although it would be nice to see him do a movie with Tim Allen, because they did seem to have that real good chemistry together. Tim Allen's still doing stuff.
He played Tim Allen's son, yes.
Well, that's the thing. Like out of all the sons, like I watched on Tool Time, Home Improvement. His was the best one that worked with Tim Allen's character. Like you could tell that they had like kind of a nice rapport back and forth going between them.
Yeah.
It was just who they were as people that wound up, like going through as their characters. They were the kind of people that you could see having like a conversation all the time with.
Well, that show, there were 3 boys.
Yes.
Like, Tim the Toolman had 3 sons. Definitely the middle one was like the most talented
Actor.
Yeah. So, yeah. And obviously you went out onto a big career. I think the
more
other
of a
two,
career than the other ones. Yeah.
I think they did some stuff, but I don't know if I've seen them much either.
But that's the thing. It's like, yeah, I really dug their on-screen chemistry together. So I'd like to see them do a little bit more, maybe even just voice acting together. Because like Tim Allen is the voice of Buzz from like the Toy Story series. So fingers crossed. A man can hope. But yeah, lots of like Jeremy Irons as Scar and all that. Jim Cummings as the voice of one of the hyenas. Jim Cummings, for those that don't know, oh my goodness, he does a lot of voices. I think best known Darkwing Duck is probably the best one to work with for him on that one now.
Okay.
Although I believe he also does Tigger now too for the voices. But yeah, he's a pretty decent voice actor. I got Whoopi Goldberg and Cheech Marin. Like,
okay.
Say what you want about me and what I liked and didn't like. Back when I was young, I got Whoopi Goldberg and Cheech Marin automatically. It's like, oh god, man, that's Cheech. Where's Chong? No, they didn't get They didn't get Tommy Chong to do
Was
a
he in
voice.
jail at the time? Oh, no, this was a long time. This is in the 90s?
Yeah, it was before he got busted for
So he went to jail in the 2000s.
Chong, Chong's Bongs wasn't a thing yet.
Right.
And I think now that it's legal enough in enough states, they're not going to be busting them for anything else. So, yay, woo! But, you know, that's the thing. Is like they're different people. They're just because they've done a comedy duo before doesn't mean they always have to be together.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But, yeah, it really struck me as just how big the cast was. It's like every name was a name. It wasn't just like, oh, yeah, somebody else.
Yeah. Are you comparing it to, like, Beauty and the Beast? Because that's 2 weeks ago?
Or you could work it with Aladdin. I mean, like...
yeah.
Like, there was some decent... Like, the singing voice for Jasmine was one of their bigger singing voice actors. Robin Williams, of course, for the genie.
Okay. Yeah.
But it wasn't like everybody was the big somebody. It's like, oh, God, that's a big recognizable voice. So, yeah, it was. I found that to be nice. I don't think it could have been made today. There'd been too much.
The Lion King?
There would have been too much of an uproar about him being raised from his youth to adulthood by what is effectively a single parent family or single gender, like family, like with Timon and Pumbaa representing two father figures. Nathan Lane himself being homosexual, so the parallels being a little bit more obvious in that regard.
So they wouldn't make it nowadays for that reason?
There'd be too much of a kerfluffle about it. They'd have to have like a female role in there to make it more of a balanced household image.
Really? Huh. I don't know.
Well, that's the thing. Is like people are like with the internet being everywhere now as opposed to back then. Like it's a lot easier to complain about stuff and find other people who are willing to complain with you about it. Yeah. It's a lot harder to make these sorts of films in a vacuum. And then they'd be like, oh, like how come, only one person in the entire cast sounds like they're from Africa? How come you got like three different British style voices? Yeah, everyone else sounds American except for the old crazy monkey guy. Why is he the only one that sounds like he's from Africa?
Okay, that I can see is a little bit more more of a valid complaint.
Oh, trust me, if there's people that are homophobic, they'll find a reason to complain about showing a single-gendered household going on for.
Yeah, but I didn't, especially with Disney now and Frozen and doing stuff like that. I feel like Disney is firmly on the side of pro LGBT rights or
at least showing diversity.
Yeah,
just to make sure they've got something different. But they'd encounter flack for it. They'd encounter people saying, "Oh no, don't."
Well, I think they already encounter flack for everything in Frozen, so.
Yeah. But yeah, Frozen had such good songs.
That's Disney, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
It might seem like it's a bit of a Pixar thing, but Frozen is pure Disney.
Okay.
But yeah, I think they would have had a lot more hassle to go through. I don't know if it would have been the same movie. If it would have been like...
Well, I mean, yeah, time, obviously, yeah, it's what, 20 years old?
About there, yeah.
Yeah, times change, so... And, yeah, it would have been written longer than that, so 25 years maybe, when they first, thought of it.
But yeah, I think just with the differences in times, I think they'd have to, question, is it okay to show Simba, being raised up, by two guys, there's no female in the group. Should we add in a third wacky female character in there?
Well, yeah, I think they would go ahead with it. In fact, they might even... I think the idea, Timon and Pumbaa are friends or roommates of some kind. I don't think it's ever...
They're pals.
Yeah,
that's all it ever is.
They're buddies. I don't think there's anything like a relationship implied.
Well, there's no other females around. The only time they encounter a female is when, Nala comes back and, or goes to the area, and finds them. Oh, God, you're not dead.
But, I mean, wasn't there a whole Timon and Pumbaa cartoon?
There was.
And were there never any female characters in that, or?
I don't recall any of them being female characters that weren't antagonists.
Okay.
Yeah. Mind you, I don't recall it very, I remember every episode, and I don't know if I even saw every episode, but I don't recall ever having them with a female
a love interest for either one of them.
Okay. Love interest, or even just a fellow protagonist, someone who wasn't up against them throughout the episode. I don't know if they're in the Lion Guard series. I'd have to ask Zoey on that one.
Okay.
She's seen more of that than I have. But yeah, like there, it has been heavily inferred, that they are, like a couple. I mean, heck, Scar himself gets accusations even to this day of being like Hollywood camp gay.
Mm-hmm.
The kind of gay that you don't have to say is, but he has all the attributes of a stereotypical.
Okay, yeah, I can see it.
Although there was that one line I remember. Young Simba is playing with Scar. Scar's really not in on it, but Simba's playing anyways. And Simba announces he's going to wind up, being king one day. And he goes, "What's that going to make you?" Uncle Scar, and he goes, "A monkey's uncle." He goes, "Oh, ha ha ha, you are so weird, Uncle Scar." And he goes, "You have no idea."
Huh.
And so that whole "you have no idea" might be like implying his relationship with hyenas, and that he actually, works with the hyenas as opposed to, it's like shunning them like every other, like noble creature in the Pride Lands does.
Yeah.
Or it might be implying that, yeah, he's weirder than just making a good one-liner.
Well, yeah, so what is, like, you watched this movie. What is Scar's motivation? Like, what does he want?
He wants to rule.
He just wants to be king? But, like, okay, once he's king, doesn't he has ideas about how things should be run, right?
Into the ground, yes.
Oh, that's it? So that doesn't sound like an interesting character. Maybe that's a problem.
He's a bad ruler is what he is.
So he wanted to rule, but to no particular end. He just says, well, I just feel like I
want to
be,
be, top dog, so to speak.
King. Like,
that makes a metaphor, I suppose.
I guess in a lot of ways Simba is very similar because Simba's like, I just want the title. Like, I don't care what I do with it.
At the beginning, yes.
Yeah.
He learns about the responsibility of being, like a leader. I'm not very happy with the whole, like, oh, you have to come back because you're the true king. It's like, so what? I'm very anti-monarchy in the regards of that it actually means anything.
Yeah, that's true. Like, why do they, if they have all the values that they sort of, why not just pick a random lion that's...
There was no other male lions, which actually means some very weird things about the relationship between Simba and Nyala.
That they're brother and sister?
Well, there's a chance she could have been like Scar's kid, so they'd be cousins at best.
Okay.
Yeah. Mind you, that's just how things work. Like a lion dominates over so many females in like the pride sort of thing.
Yeah, in real life, like a lion will eat cubs.
Yes, infanticide. I remember the name of the article I remember reading on that one back in university was called "First Kill All the Kids."
Mm-hmm.
And to show like the evolutionary advantageous nature of killing off kids that aren't yours in a harem-styled situation. It's brutal, and I don't approve of it, but you know what? I see it from the evolutionary perspective of why. Yeah, there are some good points raised. I won't go too deep into it.
Okay. Yeah.
But suffice to say, there was only 2 males for some reason in the entire pride, and they were so far away removed from other like tribes of lions that one of like a rogue male wasn't just like wandering by. And
everything the light touches was our kingdom.
Yeah, but there's clearly beyond that because there was the desert, and beyond that's a jungle sort of thing.
Yeah.
How to state this sort of stuff? Like, there was also a drought going on during Scar's reign. There's no animals and there's no water.
Yeah.
So if Simba had started his rule right after Mufasa died, things might be better off in regards to their food. Because I believe with the addition of the hyenas eating what they wanted when they wanted, there was too much predation, not enough prey. And that's why like the animals like died and you got eaten or like left the area.
Yeah.
Too many predators. So Simba could have like prevented that from being an issue, but he couldn't have done anything about the lack of water.
Well,
the drought would have been like there regardless of who was.
Isn't
leader.
the monkey magic though? Like
he doesn't really show much for magic. I mean,
like he couldn't, like he might have not summoned rain because he was because Scar wasn't treating him well.
Basically, a middle finger. It seemed like Scar didn't even pay attention to him. Like he still had his like a crazy, like a monkey, tree house,
mm-hmm.
which is I guess it's more tree than house. It's just kind of where he was living in the tree. But it's just one of those African trees that's really wide, so you actually get some decent floor space.
A baobab tree.
Yeah. So yeah, you get some decent floor space going on in there for him. So that's nice. But aside from him realizing that Simba's alive based off of something blown off, like cast through the wind, to him being in the right area when Mufasa manifested in the sky, nothing was directly linked to him aside from just being a smart old guy.
Okay.
So yeah.
He did do some magic though, right? Or didn't he make a potion of some kind?
No. He just cracked up like a melon and just used that for painting stuff.
Oh, he just painted. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, heck, the one thing is he's looking at some of the stuff is he's got the handful of the I guess there was maybe some hair from Simba on that one. And he was just looking at it and he cracks open like a melon sort of thing, and then he doesn't use the melon to sprinkle over it or add it to make a mixture or anything like that. He just scoops it out and he starts eating it as he's staring at it and thinks about it.
Oh, okay.
So yeah. Nothing overtly magical, just really nice, wise guy.
Although you've heard the sort of the supernatural theory of with the king goes the land follows the king or whatever.
Yes.
So I mean, there could still be some kind of magic involved. So maybe,
but that wouldn't have been Rafiki. That would have been Simba.
Well, it's divine magic basically. Yeah,
the divine right to rule and the effects and consequences of being one with the land.
Yeah. So I don't know.
Not Rafiki's magic, but definitely there might be something to be said about magic that once the proper ruler gets in there, it starts to rain.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, that's so.
I'm not big on that, unless it's a very supernatural sort of world. If you're on the back of a giant turtle, I'll buy that.
Okay.
If you are throughout some point in our history, I'm not going to buy that.
I guess the thing about the Lion King is it's one of these Disney movies that it looks very, well, I don't want to say realistic because the animals talk, but there's none of this.
They were well drawn, all of them.
There's no magic. Nobody even wears clothes. Well, except I guess the monkey wears something.
No, he's got the staff.
Okay, he's got a staff and that's about it. So basically it's all animals. There's no magic, no spells or anything like that. So it's a very, I'll say realistic.
We'll go with mundane as opposed to
magical.
Mundane?
Yeah. Mugglish.
Yeah, just talking animals is about as crazy as it gets, and except for the weather. When Simba returns, the clouds come in as they go towards the Pride Rock and all that. The lightning strikes when the two of them fight, and that causes a fire, and then when Simba rightfully reigns, the weather comes out.
Yeah.
And it rains finally. And everything turns green, wonderful. And then the animals all of a sudden come back.
Yeah, it's very convenient, isn't it?
I'll chalk it all up to the divinity of rulership.
Yeah.
Not happy with it, but whatever.
Well, I don't mind that metaphor entirely because there is a shortcut. It's a way of saying that that leadership is important without being directly every single connection that you have to make.
Well, here's the thing: is could we work it backwards? It's not just the right ruler will make the weather better and the circle in a properly continued whole, but they are the ruler because they can do that.
Yeah.
So in which case you could make it as why are you the ruler because I can do these effects, as opposed to these effects happen because I'm in power. Whereas you just the way it seems is that just by putting Simba in there, he becomes a proper circuit. So you flip the switch back, and all of a sudden the weather goes back to proper weather. Scar was a wrong transistor, so it couldn't complete the circuit, and then the weather goes out of whack.
Yeah, that makes sense. Well, I mean, maybe
as opposed to a more active role.
Maybe it just really was just a giant coincidence, and the weather just happened to be crappy when Simba left, and
it would have been crappy if Simba had ruled.
Yeah.
So it's just Scar's reign was bad because he put too much predation load on the ecology of the situation, but it wasn't that bad because the weather is pretty much out of every ruler's control ever, unless you're buying into some deep conspiracy theories.
And they do reference in the movie, you mentioned the Circle of Life. They reference the Circle of Life. The Circle of Life is going to continue, no matter what, right?
Not necessarily.
Oh, okay.
Because if you've taken biology, like animal control stuff, you can see like predator-prey populations, and if the prey increases too much, then that means you can have more predators. But then that means the prey numbers drop off, and you have too many predators. And what usually winds up happening is they usually cycle around like an equilibrium point.
So that sounds like a circle to me.
That is the circle of life.
Circle of life, okay.
Too many predators, not enough prey, predators die off, prey population expands, and it just keeps on going. It's like a circle of life, unless you want to look at it from a time graph as a three-dimensional thing, then it's really the coil of life.
The coiling, yeah sure.
But yeah, if you look at it on a nice like two-dimensional graph, it will be the circle of life. Whereas with what Scar did was massively and very quickly overload the predator number in the population, thereby driving out almost to effectively localized extinction of the prey, thereby shattering the circle of life. That could have been an amazing point to have put in as to why things are so bad, because there's just too many predators to sustain, especially in these bad conditions.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. Or it's a bigger shock than what you normally get with the usual cycles.
Because that's the thing, like who knows at what point they were at during that cycle when all of a sudden, because so taking just a quick look in my mind as to the number of lions was there, I'd put it maybe a little over a dozen lions, whereas there was a lot more hyenas. There was points that were showing up where it was like, dude, there must be like 100, 200 hyenas going on here.
Okay. Yeah, there was.
So take 12 and then turn it into 120. That's a huge influx of predators, and it's no wonder there was all of a sudden no food after a few years. Yeah.
But then obviously if you deplete an area and you kill all the prey, the predators all either die or leave.
And that's where it was coming down to when Simba returned. Where's your, your hunters? Because the females do the hunting, as they actually do, which is, kudos for Disney, points on that one, that they actually have the females out doing the hunting.
Yeah.
And it's like, there's no food to be had. There's only one option, we have to leave. And he's like, never! Then we'll all starve to death. So be it! So he was at that point of rulership where it's like, I'd rather everyone die than me succeeding any power at all.
Okay. Well, yeah. But then, there's other parts of Africa, presumably.
Definitely, yeah.
So even if you sort of completely destroyed...
Decimated is wrong, because that would have applied 1/10, yes.
I
destroyed the local ecology.
Yeah, completely destroyed the local ecology.
Devastated.
There's a better word. You would still eventually, this is after forest fires, life comes in piece by piece. There's a cycle of what plants and animals come by.
All the old brush burns out. The water comes in, helps renew the green, and with the green comes the animals.
Yeah, and then you might have that's the other thing. You might have a very different mix establish itself just because something else is going on.
And yet it looked like it was the same old group afterwards.
Yeah,
which is weird. I think it could have been nice to have shown how things will be different. Because of what comes back. Some things will, some things won't. Some things will come in first, some things will come in later. I think that would have been a great thing to show, but they were getting towards the end of their allotted time. So.
Yeah. And I guess the other thing about a circle of life is it supposedly includes death. And, the lions are killing and eating creatures
Don't
all
we eat
time.
the antelope, Dad? Yes, but we will die and become the grass that the antelope eat.
Yeah.
It's kind of a raw deal for the antelope still, but,
I feel like the whole Scar cycle is just it's a bigger wheel in that circle of life.
Well, the thing is, there have been islands that got wiped out of its populations because of some much of a predator or too much of a prey.
Yeah.
There's one island I remember reading about a study on the population. Some moose got swam over onto the island. Lots of moss. There's good stuff that moose like to eat and all that stuff there. And the moose population just absolutely exploded. There's like 200, 300 moose on this island. It's moose everywhere, man. Mm-hmm. And then 3 years later they come back. There's 2 moose. They ate everything, then they all starved to death.
Ooh, wow.
And it wound up being the moose died off on the island because they ate everything and then starved to death. And there's been no moose on the island ever since.
If a moose starves to death, I guess it just rots and decomposes, right?
There's other small verminous stuff,
like
creatures.
mice, or what would eat a moose?
Rodents, some prey, like birds will actually eat when they can.
Would a bear, or there's not enough?
There
bears?
was no bear
There's
on
no
the
bear
island.
there. Okay.
Trust me, if there's a bear or two, they could have called out the moose population pretty well.
Do bears hunt moose? Can they?
They can scare moose into doing some stuff that'll wind up causing their death, but they don't normally hunt something that big. Moose are vicious. Anything with antlers is just an absolute jerk to fight.
Yeah, but I mean, bears are pretty tough too. Like the biggest bear is like a grizzly.
But you know what? It's easier for the grizzly to do. Just find that dead moose over there and eat that instead.
Or catch some fish or something.
Yeah.
I guess it depends on the season.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Or if you can catch
berries.
a sleeping moose, by all means, quickly go for the throat. But how often is that going to be a chance? But yeah, there was just I've seen a deer eat a bird before. So just because a creature is an herbivore doesn't mean it's always herbivorous. It just means it doesn't usually include meat in its diet. It doesn't go hunting it.
Although bears, they can run really fast, right?
Oh yeah, they got a good speed now.
Can they outrun a moose or a deer?
They usually don't need to, because the moose can hit the water, then it's got the advantage, and then it's got antlers.
So the moose is a good swimmer, and the moose is a good fighter. Okay.
Yeah.
Bear versus moose.
Yeah. Sadly, moose wins unless you got a real...
Sadly.
Well, you're expecting...
You're on the bear side?
I mean, a bear, man. Look at these. It's a bear, man. There are bears that have species, with cranial ridges on them just to add more biting power to their jaw. That's pretty badass. Still loses to the moose in most cases. It's just not worth it. But yeah, and in which case, by getting it off the cycle with the proper ratios of predator to prey, you can horribly ruin an area's ecology. And given the rarity of lions as a species numbers throughout most of human known history, maybe they don't come back once they're gone.
I guess, yeah.
So,
well, let me ask you this about the Lion King. Do you think it's a nice, I don't know, nice? Is it a good little sort of object lesson to help somebody young maybe get a bit more of an awareness of sort of how the circle of life, or how life fits together?
Yes, there's some flaws in it. They do say Timon makes a joke about what's eating you. Nothing. He's the top of the food chain. It's much more of a food web than a chain.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
To help go with the cycle, in the circle of things, as opposed to just like a pyramid where it just funnels up. It does give potentially the wrong lesson about mixing. Like if Scar wanted to have the hyenas come out of the hyena lands, and just have the hyenas and the lions working together as one, that would have been a laudable goal.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
But he was using them as jackboot thugs to maintain control over the lionesses.
Right.
Not so good there.
Okay.
So it wound up being you could learn the lesson, it's not good to mix. Mixing is a very bad thing that'll lead to the destruction of everyone involved. And you could put that on human terms, which becomes a very bad lesson to learn.
Yeah.
So, you have to make sure you just thread that needle just right for the lesson on that one. Don't overload the predator population of an area. For that one, you kind of need a little bit more education than most kids would wind up having on it.
Okay. And how do you rate it as an adventure? Just as
I won't rate it as very much of an adventure at all, because if you take Simba as the protagonist, the backstory of him causing the death of his father, or at least so he thinks, and then running off, and then you've got the cut scene where he ages to adulthood and then comes back. Really not much of a story for him.
Right. Oh, I remember reading or hearing that there was actually a lot more written for that
aging process?
Yeah, they actually have adventures, but they actually cut that because it wasn't, I guess they didn't need it for the story.
It was a side plot, effectively.
Yeah, but that would have made it a more adventurous, exciting movie, probably.
Yes. So for him, it's really about, okay, and then you've got your two friends that'll be your other two PCs. NPC, your old friend comes and finds you, like thinking you're dead, and you return, and it's just like the fighting, like Scar, and maybe a little bit of the hyena fight in there, fighting some mooks and one boss, and that's really all it is for an adventure. It's a very story-driven sort of adventure. Very little hack and slash.
Great.
But as I did mention about like him being the one in charge and thus being the one who does cause the weather to be as it is, I'd like to connect that up to a bit of a topic for this week.
Oh yeah, we have time.
Because I was watching another movie this week, The Black Castle, and the bad guy's backstory is that he was in Africa. Yeah, all African stuff there, and he was causing the native tribe there to believe he was like a white god. And then once he got wounded, they realized, hey, gods don't get wounded. Apparently, I don't know who started this thing about gods can't get wounded. They seem to die an awful lot in their own mythology. Just ask Osiris.
Usually by some monster or something, not by a regular snake or whatever.
Or like somebody's gun.
Is that what it was? Yeah.
It was the English forces that wound up causing him to get hurt. But yeah, once they found out he wasn't really a god, off he runs. And I was thinking to myself, it's like, kind of a weird backstory for the villain, but it gives him a good reason to hate some people to try and get his revenge. And if I'm not mistaken, it's not like I am a living god isn't like the first thing like that has ever been used. I mean, just looking back at stuff that I remember Jack Sparrow in one of the movies for him there. He has to be the living god, so he's got all those fake eyes painted on him, sort of thing, and he has to be true neutral and not do something against the godlike nature, otherwise the natives turn against him. In the comics, Storm has been, and I believe still is, revered as a weather goddess, both for her tribe, and I believe Wakanda, despite its high technology, still reveres her, even though she's no longer married to T'Challa, is still counted as a weather goddess there. Something about controlling the weather in an area where the weather is very important winds up making you very powerful. And so they're all lump them in, and you could potentially put Simba in there, all as like living gods in that case, or at least the hand thereof.
I see. Yeah.
And I think that's an interesting sort of trope that has a lot of variability, because I mean like we talked about Simba, his presence causes the right nature because he's the rightful ruler. But you could work it backwards in that he causes the weather, and that's why he's the rightful ruler. Anyone else trying to step into his position can't do that. Whether or not he's consciously doing it might be another issue. There seems to be no sign of him consciously controlling the weather, though. Yeah. But how about if we were to run a campaign, Josh, would you let me play a living god? Not something like 3rd edition with divine ranks or anything like that, but allow myself to proclaim myself to be some sort of quasi-deific thing and try and convince people in a foreign land to worship me thereof.
You can proclaim it, yeah. We can talk about how many points you're spending or depending on the system.
I think it'd be more role-playing for D&D than much else.
Yeah. I've always been in favor of. Yeah, I like the idea of ascending to God, even in a...
Or hitting that weird sweet spot where it really doesn't matter. Let's go with Conan, with Thulsa Doom. Hey, there we go. We work Mufasa in for that one. We get the same voice actor, James Earl Jones. Thulsa Doom wound up, proclaiming himself to be like a demigod by virtue of the fact that he's a powerful sorcerer who could turn himself into a giant snake and do other sneaky fun things. He actually has more powers in the stories. Controls demons, Lovecraftian style demons. This guy's got oomph power, man.
Cool.
Yeah, pretty awesome. And so he's got that weird sweet spot where it's the Hyperborean age, where you can if you can summon and get some demons to do your bidding, you can cast a few magic spells, you can proclaim yourself as a demigod, and there's really no one out there arguing it. Yeah.
Well, I mean, historically, you look at the pharaohs of Egypt; they basically declared themselves to be gods.
Well, descendant thereof, and they interbreed to keep the line pure. And
and they basically the powers that they had. Well, I guess a major power of a deity, power over life and death. Maybe you can't bring someone back from death, But you can order anyone killed who you want. Like if you have this sort of,
But
you're
that
a
doesn't
pharaoh.
make the organized mobsters in like the mafia demigods.
Well, I guess
Or
because
does it?
there are higher or alternative powers to them, I suppose, because there's an actual U.S. government.
So what does that make like the Supreme Court, like a collection of demigods? We sentence you to death. Boom.
Yeah. Yes. I think that's interesting about like our sort of you can add this metaphor to our society in the modern world, is that our gods are sort of these constructions of justice systems, and like we've created a bureaucracy that basically acts as our deity. And it's all a system of rules, but it all works. It does that same function: is decide who lives, who dies.
Fingers crossed, it does it right, and it has been known to be infallible.
And yeah, we don't, like in Canada, we don't have the death penalty anymore, so that's kind of off the books. But
mostly because we can't bring someone back if it turns out
that's the other thing. Although
maybe if we're able to do that, we'll reinstate, right?
Modern medicine and artificial intelligence and uploading your consciousness to computers. Who knows what could happen in the future?
It'll have to get pretty damn cheap to do something like that, right? It's just like,
yeah.
If it costs you like $2 million to like upload your mind to a computer, we are not going to be doing that to death row criminals.
Well, $2 million of today's dollars, like
I imagine $2 million is still going to be a decent sum of money for a very long time.
Probably, but
unless we go the way of Zimbabwe, $1 million is going to be pretty. Like I'm not going to say no to it anytime soon.
I've been reading articles about how basically what we consider a lot of wealth, like even if it's not measured in dollars per se, but we consider a lot. Like in the future, it will everybody will have that. So there'll be more. Things will be more expensive, but there will be more access to being able to spend
I don't know
money.
about that. The whole diminishing job market as automation goes
No, maybe
on.
not. I mean, depending which way we go, too. Yeah, maybe not for the lower echelons of society. Maybe we're going to
And I think the lower echelons will get bigger echelons, but that's a personal thing of mine.
Right, we're going to divide, what's a good example? There's so many dystopian. The Time Machine has the Murlocs and the Eloi, although they're kind of backwards, aren't they? That turns out.
Yeah,
Anyways,
the Eloi are a food source.
Yeah.
Which, hey, if you want to combine that up with Aerosmith's song, Eat the Rich, well, I'm not going to say cannibalism happens, but if things get really bad, eat the rich. It'll have to get pretty bad for that, though.
Sorry, I went on a tangent there from you.
But yeah, I mean, I figure this out, like how much power in your campaign would a person need to show in order to have people start thinking of them as some sort of deific figure?
I would have, before you mentioned it tonight, I would have thought quite a bit, but actually, thinking about sort of, uneducated, illiterate peasants, maybe goblinoids, something like that.
So yeah, you'd have to, go away from either standard races, thanks to tradition beyond, literacy standards.
I think and 5th edition, I think it's just you're automatically literate. Everyone is literate.
Even barbarians now.
Yeah.
They got a really good literacy program in whatever fantasy settings they make over there these days.
Yeah.
Very nice.
But
goblinoids.
I probably wouldn't. It would just be your diplomacy check. You could basically you can role play it, and I'll call for a whatever sleight of hand or
whatever trick
like
you want to show to prove your divinity.
Basically, you just have to do a magic trick, and it depends on a more sophisticated audience is going to be harder to trick, but you could probably still do it.
What about a warrior? If he kills a dozen opponents without taking a single hit point damage, could he make a claim that he's divine by virtue of his martial skill? Otherwise, it's just going to be spellcasters who only divine things out there.
He could claim it, but also I'm thinking you still need that charisma in order to make the case that the reason because people have seen powerful warriors.
Deities, demigods running around out there proclaiming themselves than there are, say, elves.
I think in the case of half-orcs, you probably have more beliefs about either spirits or it's not necessarily living heroes, although it can be, because it's still possible to have a charismatic half-orc.
Yeah.
Like,
but still, like according to the number array, not quite as likely.
Yeah, they're not quite as. Yeah, so there's more charismatic elves. I don't know, like maybe the elves though being more charismatic, maybe they're not as interested in pretending to this kind of power. Like it depends what you want to get out of it too. Like why? Like do you just like it's not it doesn't seem obvious to me that being a deity is going to be advantageous all the time.
Let's take an example from the Black Castle movie. The reason why the whole kerfuffle happened and he got deposed as no longer as being the false white god was because of an ivory trade. There was like an entire ivory system set up there, and he was taking some very good advantage of that. The British kind of wanted that, so they outed him as being not divine. And in the start of the movie, like the English guy there is able to get his false, like identity put in place, and even get a good word from the German emperor, sent out. Because of just how much good he's done in making sure that the English are taking advantage of this ivory trade here. So there's like the wealth to be had. Like you could say, like gold mines. You could say like diamond mines, stuff like that. Go with like the ivory, the hides, the pelts, and all whatever stuff. There could even be wood. Like if there's a particularly like good tree, like ebony. Have you seen like a good ebony?
Probably. I mean, aren't black piano keys ebony?
Yeah, some of them are. Like the white ones are ivory traditionally.
Is it ivory and ebony? Is that or
that's where that's where the song came from, ebony and ivory.
It's from the piano keys, yeah.
Yeah, but ebony, like just like, next time you get a chance, look at ebony. It is a wonderful wood, nice smooth grain, has good texture and color going on in there. So like you could make an argument saying like the wealth you're getting out of this is being able to export and sell these ebony trees.
Okay, yeah, so that's a pretty specific situation. And also, I was thinking in the movie, I think part of the reason why he claims, oh, I'm a god and I have these powers, is because he's kind of got a sense of what they already believe about how divinity works. So it wouldn't necessarily work just to come on a random goblin tribe and say, oh, I am a god. Well, maybe they don't believe in that kind of thing.
Could be like the whole Ponce de Leon and the conquistadors, where the like it just happened to be that what counted as a god was someone who was taller than the people and paler, and then these white guys from like Spain pop in and they're riding up and it's like, oh my god, look at them, they must be gods because they match up. So do a little recon first, see what it takes to qualify as like their head honcho.
Yeah.
But mind you, this would be like a D&D campaign. Proclaiming yourself to be that god could bring in some very nasty consequences to you.
Yeah, potentially.
The god and his actual divine, like messengers not taking a very fond liking to you stealing the warships. So maybe it is good to be the usurper.
I can
deific figure.
I can tell you in my campaign worlds, the deities probably wouldn't notice a small thing like that. Like if you're just influencing a tribe, if you start like tribe by tribe, building becoming a warlord and ruling all these goblins as their god, I think at some point, yes, the actual goblin god will be like, hey, wait a minute, probably notice, but he's not going to automatically trigger by someone saying, well, I'm a god, Because that's sort
depends on how jealous the god is, right?
Yeah.
What if we work more towards the human end of things, whereas you proclaim yourself a demigod by virtue of your, we'll say in this case, wizardly talents, and you start up like a cult, like Thulsa Doom did, where he's got like cults in every town, sort of thing, worshipping him, and he's got towers going up and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Would Baka look very kindly upon this sort of thing?
Isn't Bakab called the Uncaring? Isn't that his name? So,
but it's because what he really focuses on is the magic.
Yeah.
So if you're like restricting and controlling the flow of magic within these civilized areas, Bakab might actually give a darn about that.
Possibly, yeah.
If you're a secret cult, like was it like the Dionysian secrets and all that sort of thing they had in real world history? Sort of thing. If you're working with secrets, maybe Vecna does not take a liking to you utilizing magic and proclaiming yourself a master of secrets. And Vecna is very much a deific figure you do not want to get on the bad side of.
Yeah,
not that anyone's really on his good side, but
I think if you're I don't. At a certain level, below a certain level, you really are beneath their notice, and they figure you're going to burn yourself out, or
maybe make it a level 11 cutoff, like the traditional like legend lore.
Probably, yeah.
So level 11 is when you hit legendary status and the gods start taking note of you.
In fact, like just off the top of my head, maybe I would, if I had some time to think about it, I might change my idea. But off the top of my head, I wouldn't have a god notice anybody below 20th level. Well,
that's the thing is I put 11th because of the old legend lore spell. You can't like scry anything that has less than 11 levels or hit die because they're not considered legendary at that point.
Yeah. But my scale might be too high, I guess. But
it depends on how your level range is going out. Something like Eberron, most of the NPCs are supposed to be a much lower level by and large. So someone even like 8th level would be fairly noteworthy.
Yeah, that's true.
I do remember a campaign of yours where my 9th level wizard was one of the most powerful wizards in the campaign world at the point.
That's true, yeah.
Because it was much more nature oriented, so there'd probably be druids that could have kicked my butt right up and down like the major river delta area. But when it comes to wizardly stuff, I was the biggest.
Yeah, and I think I had just something like, there were no wizards sort of in the area, which I think I would change now, but...
Or just not very many powerful wizards in the area.
Yeah.
5, 6s here and there, but not much for higher than that.
Yeah.
So there's something then to be said about taking and playing against type in an area. So if you're playing in like an urban style setting, you've got like one of those magical 10 million people cities, like that can't exist under standard medieval infrastructures. Mm-hmm. But whatever, it's magic, so you're doing it. And you're playing a druid, there's not likely to be very many high-level druids in the area, unless you've got a special system set up for that. And then, you can really start pulling the power play at a lower level, because there's not many people that can do what you can do at that lower end.
Probably, yeah. I mean, it'd be hard to sort of claim divinity when people can do alternative versions of your divinity.
Fair enough. So in which case, maybe a good trick or two, like a rogue, being able to vanish around very easily, nice cloak of invisibility or other minor trinket or two, causing them to be, the thief of the shadows. He can appear anywhere. He just pops in out of a shadow.
Yeah. Well, here, let me try and reverse it on you. Like, if a DM if there was a NPC that sort of showed up randomly and just sort of was able to disappear and appear at will, seemingly, and performed a few miraculous acts for you, and was like, yes, I am I'm an avatar of the deity, whatever.
Huzabuza,
the deity. Do the players, do they take him at his word, or do they...
I think that's up to the player. I mean, they are that wonderful circumstance where they don't have to make checks to buy the role.
Yeah.
They can if they want to play it out that way, but they never have to.
Yeah.
In which case, yeah, sure, until proven otherwise, why not? It's a magical setting.
Yeah, okay.
So I guess it depends on what sort of portfolio Huzabuza has in this regard. If you've got a god of commerce, I could see a lot of avatar work going on with him to help, increase commerce and get more money for his divine treasury realm.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas, a much more aloof god, Paylor, for instance, probably wouldn't be doing too many manifestations.
Yeah.
Under almost any circumstances. Maybe in a natural eclipse sort of thing going on. I could see that. Definitely him making an appearance.
So yeah, if the deity it gives you a good reason for why he's showing up and sort of has, I don't know, gives you a mission or something like that, or says, I want you to do this because I need mortals to take care of it for me or whatever.
What if you just connect yourself to the divine and say that you have gotten divine, some divinity rubbed off on you? Real world example, I guess in this case, go way, way back, 6,000 years, Sargon the Mighty.
Mm-hmm.
He ruled 2 cities back in the Mesopotamian area, which was, not a thing that was, really done at the time. It's you ruled one city. How can you rule another city if you're ruling this city? You're hurting my head here, buddy. Oh, God, you're breaking my mind. But his, reason for being able to rule so much was that the goddess Ishtar had laid with him. And thus he had a divine favor, and thus he was as good as divine.
I think that would be a more believable statement.
It was really much more of a PR thing to get people to buy it.
It's more believable than saying you're actually a god. Of course, if you only say, oh, well, I'm only partially divine, then maybe that person who's tempted to throw that spear at you actually, maybe he does throw that spear at you rather than thinking,
but then it's okay for you to bleed and like, oh, how could you possibly bleed? You're divine. It's like, well, like, he's got powers, and like Ishtar did lay with him in his bed, but it's not like she coated him with some sort of miracle powder that makes him invulnerable.
Yeah.
Unless she's into that sort of thing. I don't know. So in that case, you can get away with more by just connecting yourself up to that divine, whether or not it really happened. Mm-hmm. That, though, might get more divine attention in such regards.
It might, yeah. Again, I tend to play my deities as fairly indifferent and not
What about
interested.
just powerful creatures, non-divine but very powerful, like sorcerers claiming to have the blood of dragons in their veins?
Yeah, that would probably be fine. Like, my dragons are not going to come around and check on everybody's story.
Unless you are pulling some serious crap besmirching this dragon's name.
Yeah, maybe, yeah.
In which case, oh boy, you got a nice fight ahead of you with great-great-great-great-great-granddaddy.
Yeah.
Which could be fun. Although a little weird, given the propensity for people to take the hide of the dragon and make armor out of it.
Mm-hmm.
So you're wearing my great-great-great-great-grandfather's body as your armor, and it fits so snug. It's like, ooh, it's a little weird.
Well, I mean, dragon armor isn't something that you just find everywhere, but yeah.
Well, that's why you make it when you get the chance. You kill the dragon, you carve that bad boy up, man.
Yeah.
You make yourself some good dragon armor as you getting yourself some dragon steaks cooked up on the grill. It's good. But yeah, it might be kind of weird if the sorcerer is actually related to the dragon in question.
Yeah.
Yeah. On the other hand, nothing says filial usurpation quite like wearing the skin of your forefathers.
Well, then that's another thing. Like, would a dragon not wear a human skin if it came down to it, if it needed it?
So you're saying like some sort of like a connected dragon who actually has to make appearances with like the people would wind up wearing like this giant magnificent human skin cape or like robe flowing around him
made out of 50 humans.
I'm thinking a much bigger dragon. I'm thinking more towards 300, 400.
300, 400, yeah.
Yeah, it's got to cloak the entire dragon up,
Yeah.
Yeah. And you got to have the fine stitching on there. The dragons aren't going to accept crude stitching. They may be beasts, but they got some class, man. That's why they hoard treasure.
But the thing is, like, yeah, a human skin, like, if it's really well crafted, you wouldn't be able to tell it from, cow skin. Basically, it'd just look like, leather.
Fair enough. I think a dragon would prefer to their hide be cured rather than just sitting in a bunch of like stinking rotten human skins.
It probably depends on the dragon.
Oh,
some
black dragon, I
individual
could see going
might,
that one.
Yeah.
Black dragon actually have like the heads as like necklace sort of style. I could see them going like all bog crazy on that.
That's right.
Yeah. So yeah, I think it's been pretty good. That was a pretty good mention about like the length and amount of being the living demigod.
All right. Yeah, sounds good.
There is more. I mean, like the more powerful trinkets you have access to, the more you can get away with. Like in 3rd edition, thanks to their formulas for how you can make a magic item and like basic use, I did create like a pair of like armbands that would have allowed you to grant a wish once per round. But that was prohibitively expensive for almost every campaign I'd ever have been in. And it was so full of potential reckless misuse. Like as soon as like it gets stolen, like oh my god, things start going really bad really quickly. That I never even seriously contemplated putting it in anything or even trying to make it. Because I'm not that foolish. Apparently, I don't play that chaotic alignment in real life. Who knew? But if you had that, like you could make some very serious claims to divinity. Or connections to, say, the genie kind, like all the genie folk. Because, I mean, bands, you grant wishes. Sounds like a genie to me. But, yeah, if people want to mention something about this, Josh, like, how can they get a hold of us?
Well, you could write us an email. thesimulationist@gmail.com is our email address. You could comment on our Facebook page, facebook.com/thesimulationist. You could comment on our YouTube page, youtube.com/thesimulationist. There is a bit of a pattern here. Each one has its pluses and minuses. I don't know if I need to go into all of them, but you know how to interact with Facebook and YouTube, and we will see those messages if you send them to us.
I'm also, whatever you're comfortable with, by and large, right?
That's right. Yeah. I'm also on Twitter at Josh_Trelaffin, TRESLAFFIN is my Twitter handle, so you can tweet at me that way. Subscribe to us on iTunes if you haven't already, and hey, we'd love it if you could write us a little review. Anything would help. You can give us stars or rate the podcast as many as you think we need. We need all the stars.
We need the entire constellation's worth.
And we are also on Patreon, although I've been meaning for a long time to revamp our Patreon presence, but we technically are on there and are accepting donations. Not that it's necessary at all, although it probably would help, because last week's episode went up late because I forgot to pay the fee on the Libsyn thing. Yeah. It's fine now. I don't know why I mentioned that, but it's okay. It's all good.
Well, the people that were worrying, right?
Yeah, the
people. Just has to give them an answer.
That's why, yeah. So they're getting a double dose, pretty much a double dose this week, because I just uploaded last week's episode iteration. Did I forget any of this? Oh, in real life, if you happen to live in Victoria, you can find me at various comedy shows around Victoria. You can add me on Facebook. That's another thing. And just tell a friend, yeah. Tell a friend about our podcast. Word of mouth is the best way to spread a podcast. So, yeah, I think that's it. Do we have wrap-up thoughts?
I think the biggest counter to playing like a living god in most campaigns would be that it makes you steal the spotlight more than your companions. So unless you're all going to wind up being like living gods, like in, say, The Road to El Dorado, where the two protagonists play gods, then it's going to wind up being that you're stealing spotlight and kind of hogging the scene in a lot of stuff.
Okay.
So if you're going to try to do it for a long term, it might be best to do that as a sort of a background thing after it's established.
Yes.
I mean, if you all want to try and play, like gods descended down amongst immortals, go for it. But that is going to increase your chances of one of you buggering it up and fooling,
Yeah.
Well, the facade drops down and they realize.
I did mention charisma earlier, and I still think that charisma is probably the most important stat for a deity. I mean, it helps to be, strong and to be able to demonstrate feats of strength. But in order to spin that into something like I'm more than just a really strong guy, I'm actually a deity, I think you will need some kind of charisma. So I think it's going to be and maybe in some cases it's the party bard or the party. Well, maybe a paladin's not likely because they'll probably already have a deity.
They don't need to anymore, though, so it's like, yay!
So they could become a deity, like I am Hieronius or something like that.
I am the spirit of justice made flesh.
Yeah, but I definitely see the it's not like a whole party wants to be deities or can be deities. It's more the charisma guy who's going to be the. But what I guess he can also do is he could prop up another character, and he could be the high priest of the other, the rogue, or for example, the rogue who's decided to make charisma his dump stat for whatever reason. He's like a thief in the shadows, and then
they're never going to see me. I never have to speak to them. Why do I need charisma? Haha.
Yeah, and then our bard is like talks him up, or like whispers him up, basically, spreads the word like, oh, he's divine, he's a deity, and like so he does it that way, and then so it is still the bard doing the work of promoting a person, but it's ultimately basically one character. I
think it could work nice as a little like a twist in like a bit of a campaign, where it's like, oh no, they seem to be in dire straits, but this one person looks a lot like like his profile's the side of the profile on the mountain there, and so they proclaim him to be like the manifestation of the mountain and is revered locally, and then you guys got to get out of there while the getting's good.
Yeah, it can happen sort of randomly, especially if you're an itinerant band of adventurers that going from like place to place. Maybe one place you end up, they think, oh, you fulfill all the criteria for this ancient prophecy that we had.
You wind up killing the beast, and then like that beast happens to be there and like prophesized evil that you overcome. Or maybe the other way. I mean, if it's like a tribe of goblins and you wind up defeating a neutral creature, maybe you're like the dark god that shows, like the blood raining down.
Yeah, but then basically you can, if you wanted, you could stick around in that town and be like, okay, well, I'm the god of this town now, and they'll give me everything I want. And maybe they'll eventually get tired of waiting on you hand and foot, and they'll realize, I don't think he's all that, like, he hasn't done any miracles lately. I mean, he still does adventures from time to time, but he's not really, he hasn't made this place much better. So there's a little bit of, like, what they get fatigued of, you're pretending to be deity. If you're good at your game, if you're good at the game and you
play it well enough, you could keep them at least somewhat interested.
Yeah, and if you're a good leader and stuff, and like you can make good social changes and like basically be a king or an administrator, then
teach them better ways to defeat their enemies.
Speaking of this whole the Lion King, where the king and the land go together. Well, yeah, if you became the king of this land and managed it well, then yeah, that you could be. They'd be like, well, it turns out he wasn't really divine, but he's a really good leader. So
I can dig it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it might do best as just a short-term deification as opposed to a long-term run.
I think there's a difference there. I think, and often in fiction, this is a very common, I guess it's a trope, is that the person comes in, pretends to be a deity, and it never seems to work out. Like, it always seems to somehow fall apart. Like, there are very few stories where it's, oh, happy ending, I'm just a god now.
Then they portrayed me as a god for the rest of my days. The end.
It always seems to crash down on people. I don't know if that's.
It's a moral lesson in that regard, I believe.
Maybe, yeah. Maybe it's just.
Or maybe just the person is incompetent. What if they tried to portray themselves as the god of incompetency?
Ooh.
Keep me appeased, or I'll come to your workplace.
Yeah, but I mean, speaking of incompetent, though, compared to deific power, pretty much every person is going to be incompetent, right?
And as a DM, don't forget that sometimes a divine thing needs to be shuffled off the mortal coil.
Mm-hmm.
The whole problem with Minos was that he got the white bull from Poseidon, and he was supposed to sacrifice the white bull, but the bull was so beautiful and majestic he didn't have the heart, and so Poseidon made his wife get amorous with the bull, and thus came the bull of Minos, or the Minotaur.
Mm-hmm.
And so because he didn't sacrifice the divine like he should have to return the favor, and to the god, to show how much it was going on for love and yada yada, things went bad. So it might have to be the old trope of, yes, you are the living god, let's throw you into our volcano to appease. So,
yeah, it can happen.
You can always throw another twist in there. Yeah, you're our god. Sit in this palanquin as we march up the side of the volcano. Have some fun with it.
And then they'll be like, well, if you're truly a god, then you'll be fine if we throw you in the volcano.
Turns out the volcano's like a, host to a whole bunch of fire, based creatures. You go in there with your friends, you beat the crud of everything. Because you're adventurers, it's what you do. You best.
Yeah.
You beat things up. And then you come back out, and then, hey, maybe you were prophesied to have done it all along. You were the hand of the god, even if you didn't know it. Sucker, you got suckered into following my religion. Haha. Well, that was fun.
Okay.
And I enjoyed it immensely.
We'll do it again.
Yes. Another great topic next week. You'll hear from us in 7 days.
Yeah, I've been Josh Gillette.
I've been Ryan Kirky.